Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Leenda, and this is For the Record, Your Honor. Boy Meets World stars Danielle Fishel and Madeline Ward get into scathing argument mid-podcast. You hate me. Boy Meets World co-stars Danielle Fishel and Madeline Ward got into the heated argument during the middle of the podcast episode, Do You Hate Us? Fishel, 43, asked the actress turned corn star Monday on her Pod Meets World podcast, which she co-hosts with alums Ryder Strong and Will Friedle. No, I do not hate you, Ward, 48, replied. I think you hate me because you wouldn't speak to me on Girl Meets World, and that was hurtful. The ladies then went back and forth about their rocky friendship throughout the years. Ward said she learned that Fishel had unfriended her on Facebook when she attempted to send her a heartfelt message in 2013. However, Fishel said she rarely uses Facebook and didn't see Ward's message until 2022, when she tried to contact her about coming on an episode of the podcast. Ward said that she felt Fishel reaching out to talk to her was disingenuous, especially after she felt disregarded on Girl Meets World set. You had an attitude about it. There was some beef between us, and I didn't get it, Ward said of her time on Boy Meets World spinoff. I didn't know if you thought I was trying to steal attention. I was genuinely confused why we wouldn't be good. Fishel said she didn't remember having an issue with Ward and admitted that filming for the Disney show from 2014 to 17 was a very difficult set for her. Let's put it this way, the memories we have of the fun set of Boy Meets World were not the memories of the fun set of Girl Meets World, Fishel said. Fishel then brought up how Ward has spoken badly of the cast in past interviews almost any time the podcast is in the news. However, the OnlyFans star said she doesn't listen to the podcast regularly because the hosts spew a lot of negativity. Fishel denied that claim, saying the same way you wrote your book about your experiences doesn't mean that they're negative. They're just experiences. So you don't listen to the podcast regularly, but your overall opinion of it is that we are negative about Michael and Ben and the show. Ward accused Fishel, Strong, and Friedle of grilling her to get ratings. Despite the bickering, the former Disney Channel stars ended the conversation on a more friendly note, with Fishel reiterating that she doesn't hate Ward and that they would gladly have her back on the podcast to talk about more episodes of their former show. Ward began portraying Rachel McGuire on Boy Meets World for season 6 in 1998, and she stayed with the series until it ended with season 7. Fishel starred as Topanga Lawrence from 1993 to 2000. 14 years later, she reprised her role for the spin-off Girl Meets World. I did not watch it, but I do know that is also one of the stepping stones for who is now very famous, Sabrina Carpenter. And Topanga played herself, but as a mother. So throughout the past couple of years, we've heard about all the things that's been going on behind the scenes on set, and they're not good. And this came out after everything was exposed with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider. I believe the first thing we heard about Boy Meets World was the female character that was the girlfriend to Ryder Strong's character in the college years. She said she felt not included, she felt like she was always the outsider, and that people treated her terribly. Then we heard about something I'm going to say in code word, combing on the sets. And then now, after just checking into about this feud, as apparently it stems way back, I come across this article from 2023. Boy Meets World star Will Friedle just detailed witnessing inappropriate behavior on the Girl Meets World set. So let's take a read.
Danielle Fishel, Will Friedle, and Ryder Strong, who starred on Boy Meets World, talked about reuniting on Girl Meets World and how it made them realize the inappropriate behavior they were also subjected to as child actors. To this day, Boy Meets World is still one of the most beloved shows. The series ran from 1993 to 2000 and aired 158 episodes. Over the course of 7 seasons, many iconic TV moments were born from characters like Mr. Feeney, William Daniels, Eric, Will Friedle, Corey, Ben Savage, Topanga, Danielle Fishel, and Sean, Ryder Strong. Heck, people still talk about the closing minutes of the series as one of the best TV moments of all time.
I love you all. Class dismissed.
Then, 14 years after the series ended, a new spin-off began on Disney Channel called Girl Meets World, which centered on Corey and Topanga's daughter Riley, Rowan Blanchard, as she navigates school, friends, and growing up. And now, it's been almost exactly 30 years since Boy Meets World premiered on ABC, and recently Will, Ryder, and Danielle have come together to re-explore their time on the hit sitcom with their podcast, Pod Meets World. Like most rewatch podcasts, their show goes episode by episode as they discuss what it was like filming the series, what was happening behind the scenes, and much more. Notably, they have opened up about working with the show's creator, Michael Jacobs, and some of the mistreatment they faced behind the scenes.
In one episode, Danielle talked about how on her first day on the series, she was humiliated on set and Jacobs threatened to fire her when she was only 12 years old. Will, Danielle, and Ryder said they didn't realize how bad the behind-the-scenes behavior was until they returned for Girl Meets World in 2014, where Danielle was a series regular and directed episodes, while Will and Ryder appeared as guest stars and wrote and directed episodes, respectively. In a new interview with Variety, the trio talked about their podcast and dove deeper into the behavior they witnessed behind the scenes of Girl Meets World. In particular, the troubling power dynamics at play within the show, and how it made them look at their own experiences on Boy Meets World from a new perspective.
Girl Meets World notably marked Danielle's first sitcom since Boy Meets World ended, and she said she immediately realized how inappropriate some of the behavior on set was.
There's a lot to be said for taking some normal workplace environment rules to Hollywood. Maybe if this would never fly in any other professional environment, maybe some of those professional rules should apply on our sets. Maybe the things that would happen in your accountant's office where someone would then call HR and it would come to an end, maybe we should participate in those things here, Danielle said. She continued telling Variety, I think I was one of the people on that set who oftentimes would say, Hi, what are we doing here? This is weird, and I know it's normal for what we do, but I don't think it should be normal, and I think we should stop this from happening. She added that by doing this, she was often seen as the problem.
In a recent episode of Pod Meets World, Danielle, Will, and Ryder talked about boundaries being crossed on set, and Will noted that he'd seen it happen on Girl Meets World. Will said, I gotta come in and occasionally look at the entire thing that was happening. You saw a lot of those traits where it was, you'd walk in and somebody 13 or 14 would be sitting on somebody's lap who's 35. There's nothing overtly sexual about it, but it's still inappropriate. He continued, saying, It's completely on the adults. It's not on the 13-year-old girl to say, wow, I shouldn't run up and jump on somebody's lap because that's inappropriate. It's on the man to go, no, I like you a lot, but why don't you sit over there and we'll have a conversation? It's just not appropriate. You don't see that nearly as much as you should. It was very strange. While working on Girl Meets World, the trio said they began to realize how inappropriate the behavior they experienced on Boy Meets World was. On the podcast, they've talked about regularly being around conversations from grown adults, where they talked about how hot the guest stars are and how the women's skirts weren't short enough.
Danielle has also talked at length on the podcast about being sexualized on set as a young child actor. While the trio have nothing but wonderful things to say about Rowan, Sabrina Carpenter, and Peyton Meyer, who lead the series, they explained that their experiences on Girl Meets World were hindered by the fact it was the cast and crew returning from Boy Meets World.
Now, as the adults on set, they saw everything differently. I was like, oh, this is what's really happening here, Ryder added. It was hard and horrible to go through, but ultimately very healthy and healing to experience. Certain people counted on us not talking to each other. When it was revealed that we were talking to each other, the curtain was pulled away, Will said. When we started comparing notes, it wasn't great. So I'm very glad that I had very limited involvement with Girl. All three of them agreed that if Girl Meets World didn't happen, they might still be ranting and raving in only the most positive ways about Boy Meets World.
Danielle elaborated, saying, "Your memories start coming back to you about when this happened and when that happened. You start to see it differently, even being able to do that. That takes a certain amount of growing up and self-reflection to even recognize it happening. And I don't think everybody recognized it happening." Another thing that happened with Girl Meets World was Danielle realized the power dynamics that were at play from the very beginning. In particular, she didn't know that the entirety of the original cast wasn't told about the spinoff. Danielle said she was initially told that Girl Meets World would only include small tie-ins and cameos from the original cast, with the new cast really leading the series. However, that turned out to not be the case, and Danielle and Ben ended up being series regulars. "Honestly, the kids suffered for that," Danielle said. "It should have been their show, its own thing with little moments here and there of tie-ins, and that's what I was told it was going to be. I was under the impression from the very beginning. I was also told that you guys, Will and Ryder, were all in on it." What Danielle came to find out is that Ryder and Will had no idea about the spinoff. In fact, they learned about it through breaking news, with Will finding out when CNN called to ask for a comment.
Ultimately, Will, Danielle, and Ryder say they are grateful for their time on both Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World because it allowed the trio to remain close, with Ryder saying, "Boy Meets World is an overwhelmingly positive experience in all of our lives." However, they said that Ben, who was once close with all three of them, has since disappeared from their lives. As a longtime Boy Meets World fan, I've really been enjoying Pod Meets World, and I'm glad Will, Danielle, and Ryder are having these conversations. What's also great is they've invited other child actors to come on the podcast to share their experiences as well.
Oh my, it doesn't just end there. After admitting to calling him every single day for a month, Boy Meets World star Will Friedle has said he can't stand the fact that Ben Savage will not speak to him. Will previously admitted to calling Ben every single day for a month after Ben abruptly ghosted him mid-text conversation back in 2020. As we just spoke about before, back in 2022, Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, Will Friedle, three of the core former cast members of Boy Meets World, launched a hugely popular rewatch podcast called Pod Meets World. And ever since, there has been one major question on everybody's lips: where is Ben Savage? And just as a reminder, Ben completes the quartet of young stars who shot to fame on the ABC sitcom that ran for 7 seasons between 1993 and 2000, with the actor turned politician just 11 years old when he landed the role of the boy, Corey Matthews. Danielle was 12 when she was casted as his love interest, Topanga Lawrence. Ryder was 13 and played Corey's best friend, Sean Hunter, and Eric was 17 when he landed the role of Eric Matthews, Corey's big, goofy brother. It was initially thought that all 4 stars had remained close in the years since Boy Meets World's finale, as they regularly attended conventions together, and they even all reprised their roles for the show's sequel series, Girl Meets World, which premiered in 2014. This show ran for 3 seasons, with Ben and Danielle series regulars and Will and Ryder having multiple guest appearances. When Pod Meets World first launched, the hosts said they had invited Ben to be a part of it and respected his decision not to be. But in 2023, in an interview with Variety, they admitted that there's a lot more to the situation than meets the eye, as they reflected on the sore subject of their relationship with Ben. In the Variety profile, the trio explained that they began discussing the podcast long before it actually launched, and Ben was always very adamant that it was not for him. Danielle clarified,
"The time between those conversations and the time we actually started the podcast was a significant amount of time."
And while he wasn't interested in being on the pod, it didn't seem as though there were any hard feelings between Ben and his former castmates, especially as he supported Danielle when her first son was born early and had to spend time in the NICU back in 2019. She recalled,
"We were just so close, especially during that time. He was checking in with me regularly."
But just 1 year later, in 2020, Ben apparently abruptly cut Danielle, Ryder, and Will from his life, with Danielle telling Variety,
"He ghosted us."
He disappeared. I wish I knew why to this day.
Will added.
We didn't have a fight. There's no falling out. There was no animosity. He just woke up one day and decided, I don't want this person in my life anymore.
At the time of the interview, all three stars confirmed that none of them had spoken to Ben for 3 years, but not for a lack of trying. In fact, Will confessed to calling Ben every single day for a month to try and figure out what had happened. He explained,
I finally sent a text saying, I've known you for 30 years, what's going on? I said, I'm gonna call you every day until you tell me not to call you anymore. That lasted about 3 weeks or a month, every single day.
Detailing why his loss was so painful for him, Will added,
I've known him since he was 11 years old, and we have a shared history. And we were doing these conventions together, and we were getting to know each other as adults. And then he just kind of went, I'm done with you. I tried and tried and tried for months, until finally my wife was like, why are you doing this to yourself? He obviously doesn't want you in his life.
Despite all of this, Danielle suggested the door is open for Ben should he want to get in touch, sharing,
Speaking for myself, Ben and I may be estranged right now, and we may have our complaints about each other, but I will always love Ben and want what's best for him. I don't think this is the end of our story, but time will tell.
On a recent episode of Pod Meets World, Will admitted that he can't stand the fact that Ben is no longer in his life, as he seemingly confirmed that nothing has changed in the 2 years since their Variety interview. Makes you wonder. So going back to earlier discussion, more news has come out with some other cast members regarding the whole situation with Madeline Ward. So partway through that tense conversation that they were having with Topanga and Madeline had said, I think there's a divide too because you guys hate Ben and you guys hate Michael Jacobs, the creator of Boy Meets World, which Danielle and Will were quick to rebunk. Of course. Will immediately stated, I don't hate Ben or Michael, with Danielle echoing, I absolutely do not hate either of them. Not hate is a strong word. I do not mean hate, but had disagreements with, I guess, Madeline replied. But Will was keen to set the record straight by saying Ben is one of the most important people I've ever met in my life, and I can't stand the fact that he won't speak to us, and that's what it is. He won't speak to us. I feel exactly the same, Danielle agreed. I can show you the last 3 years, literally, of messages, and in the middle of the conversation with Ben, he just bailed on me, Will went on. Ben absolutely one day woke up and said, I don't want Will in my life, and never told me why. As previously mentioned, Ben has pivoted from acting to politics in recent years, and in March of 2023, he ran for a congressional seat in California. At the time, Danielle, Will, and Ryder made the uncharacteristic decision to address this on their podcast after being inundated with questions from listeners. And while Will stated that he would never publicly speak about politics, the other two hosts had a little more to say. At the time, Danielle explained that she couldn't vote for Ben even if she wanted to, as she didn't live in the 30th district. She also admitted that having a personal connection with a candidate would not be a factor in her political choices. Meanwhile, Ryder said he had no idea what Ben's political stances on a lot of things are nowadays, but when they worked together in the 90s, they didn't always see eye to eye on political issues. Ben lost this particular election in March of 2024 primary. Are we to expect more hot tea and juicy details? And what else was really going on behind the scenes? You tell me in the comments down below, and I will see you in another video or live real soon. I'm Leenda, and that's For the Record, Your Honor.